Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Training lasts about an hour and a half, give or take. We do record the training, so if you can't stay for the whole time, that's fine. You can always come back later, come back to the link and watch the whole video. This also allows you to share that link with other staff members who need to become system admins. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about a feature as I'm going over it, and I'll try to address the question as soon as I see it. You'll see in the show notes there are a few links there. One is to support.virtualpbx.com, which is just our support pages. The others are to other YouTube videos that we have here, some that do a better job of showing the particular feature than what I can do here. And the other link is to the series of business SNS webinars. All right, let's go ahead and get started because it's after 10 o'clock. To get logged into our webpage, you want to first go to dash.virtualpbx.com, and that's dash.virtualpbx.com. We need 3 pieces of information in order for you to log in. The first is your username. That's just your email address. It should be in all lowercase letters. Then your password, which is case sensitive. And then finally, the account name. Typically, your organization name could be your name if you just signed up under yourself. If for some reason that doesn't work, down here you have a forgot your info link. You can click on that. Flips the box around. We still need that email address. And that's your unique identifier for your user. And here it says we need one of the two. Right? So one or the other, don't need both. Right? So we need either the account name or a phone number on the account. Right? That's a customer-facing phone number, not a phone number that's associated as a device on a user. Click on reset password. This is going to send you an email. Right? It's going to say, hey, password reset. It's going to have a link that will log you directly into your user. So, and to your user account page specifically, so you can change your password. It then logs you out. If you try to navigate away from that page, it will also log you out. So make sure you change that. Takes you back to the login page, and you enter that new password. You also have the option here for Remember Me, and then you click Sign In. Now I'm logging into a test account that I log into on a regular basis. So when I log in, it's taking me to my dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in to your account, you're going to get the dash wizard coming up. You're also going to start you off on your user account page. The user account page is actually a big, huge pop-up, and you can always get there by clicking on your name. So just go towards the top, and just to the right of center, click on your name there. Boom, big pop-up. Here's my user account page. So this is where I would go to change my own personal password. All right. Now I'm not going to be able to change my email address. In that case, I would either need to contact us, or probably more easier if you have another system admin, right? A second admin can log in and change your email for you. You can also change like your time of day, etc. Now, you also have your time zone and language option here. So as an admin and any system admin, right, over here on the left, you can click on account. So you can change like who the technical contact is, the time zone and language for the whole page. You're not able to edit the account name here. So if you want to change the account name, you want to email our billing team, and that's just billing, billing, at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the current name and what you want to change it to, because there's a bunch of things they need to make sure are synced up on their side. Over here, also on the left, we have add-ons. This is a new feature, and this will have in the future additional add-on features that you can add to your account. Now, some of the add-ons may be included on your plan, depending on the plan that you're on. Others may have a fee. So that's something to be aware of before you add on anything. Currently, the only add-on available is Text Forward, which is currently enabled on this account. Text Forward just allows a phone number to receive texts and then sends it on either to an email or to a webhook, but it's not for back and forth communication. Over here on the left, billing portal, and this link here This allows you to, get to the billing portal itself so you can like view your invoices or change your password or change your credit card, excuse me. And then this last option here, cancel account. So any system admin can come here and cancel your account. It will close, the account will be fully closed on by your next billing cycle. When you're done here, click on close, and you'll be back here on the dashboard page. Get on that first login, Dash Wizard, right? Little pop-ups coming up telling you what certain things are. We'll come up here on the dashboard page. They'll come up under the users tab and the groups tab. So let's talk about this whole page layout here. So at the top, this stuff will always be here, right? So your name, click on that, gets you back to that user account page. Most of us to the right of our name, we have a D&D toggle. D&D stands for Do Not Disturb. So I have it on, and that's why it's white. If I click on it, it'll turn it to black. And that means I'm not currently accepting calls. All right, so someone calls in and enters my extension number, they go right to voicemail. So in general, I'm not being offered calls whatsoever. Now, if you become assigned or you make yourself part of a member of the call center, right, the ACD queues, then you'll lose that D&D toggle. Okay, so those two features don't work well together. Little phone icon here. This opens up a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. That page does require a login, which just uses your Dash login and allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Now, if you just signed up with this, your user was assigned a web phone, so it will work for you. But any user you add, you would have to add a web phone directly to that user for this particular link to work for them, right? For them to be able to log into the web phone page. The little chat bubble, this opens up a new tab, takes you to virtualtext.app, another web page. This has its own login, which will be different than your Dash login or any other logins from us. This is what you use to make use of texting, right? SMS. For new accounts, you're going to need to talk to our account services team in order to be able to have the texting feature enabled on the account level. So then you can assign it to users. And they have to go over SMS registration with you. And you can look at the links in the show notes to get a preview of that. Little question mark icon, that is the help icon, right? This will open up a chat window so you can speak to a support rep. 3 horizontal line icon, it's the menu icon. This gets you other Dash features. The vast majority of our training is here under the dashboard, like 90% of it, 95. But we'll touch on those other subjects. And then the arrow to the right, that's your logout icon. Over here on the left side, we have dashboard. All right, we have these other tabs here. These are other, for the most part, core features of Dash, main number, etc. So we'll be touching on these. So just so you know, after we get through this dashboard page, over here on the left, we're going to go to users. After we're done with users, we'll go to groups and then to main number. And that's just because to set up your main number completely, you need to at least have destinations on the account where calls can go to. Over here to the right, I have my total users. I have 5 users on this account, right? So that means I have 5 people who make and receive calls, right? I'm being billed for each one of these users, generally speaking, on our plans. So something to be aware of. Then I have total devices. I have 13 currently, and a breakdown here. First up is cell phone. So you can add a cell phone or a landline as a device on your account, right? So we can send calls through your cell phone. Counts as a device, right? As far as I know, we don't currently charge for cell phones or landlines. Just something to keep in mind is when we send a call to that cell phone, right? You pick up, that's it. You can't transfer that call anywhere else. Right? There's some limitations when we send a call to a cell phone number or a landline number. Next up, soft phone. This is a software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? So it's a VoIP phone. This count of 4, right? That would include like the VirtualPBX cell phone app or any third-party cell phone apps you might be using. The web phone, this is that Chrome or Firefox device. It is technically a web phone, a VoIP phone, right? Because it uses internet connection. and was just developed later. A SIP phone is a piece of hardware, right? This is a physical device. It sits on someone's desk, typically connects via an Ethernet cable to get to their internet, right? Or to the router and then to your internet to make and receive calls that way. Down here, I have unregistered devices. I have one. That means I've turned one device off on my dashboard. It's still on there, so I can always turn it back on if I need to. Next up, I have total numbers. I have 16 phone numbers on my account. Your plan includes some number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. I believe I've seen you get one main number, and then typically it's a local number per each user. If you're on an older plan, like let's say your company's been with us for several years, but like today your boss said, "Hey, you're in charge of the phone system." You might want to check with our services team to find out for sure how many numbers are included and what your overage rate is. Here we have a breakdown of the phone numbers here, assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number means you're using it, right? Someone can dial that number and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or send a fax. Spare number, you're not currently using it, but it counts towards your allotment of numbers. And it's just, whether you took a number out of service temporarily or you're about to expand to a new market, etc. That's why it's in spare. Down here, I have USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833. USDID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So if you have a phone number in Riverside, California, USDID, just as if you had one in Grapevine, Texas. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you'd like to acquire one, you want to email our porting team, and that's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They'll let you know if that's possible and if there are any additional requirements in order for you to get that number. Any requirements would come from the country in question. Conference bridges, I have 2. That means I have enabled the conference feature on 2 of my users. So I have 2 people who moderate or run a conference or host. So over here toward the top right, I have my main number box, which I currently have 4 phone numbers in. These numbers all behave the same way. They're all going to the same location on my system. They would all have the same main greeting, for instance. Down here, I have the conference room number. This is a phone number everyone dials to join a conference. That includes your staff members. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but they're all going to the same set of conference rooms. The fax box number, this is your inbound fax number. You can have one main fax box number on the account. This also allows you to set up your fax box to allow for outbound faxing. The company directory here, you've got 2 options for a CSV and soft phone. The CSV will download a CSV file, right? Spreadsheet document. It's going to show your staff members, like their names, their extension numbers, their email addresses, and their primary devices. The soft phone file, that is for use with the desktop version of the VirtualPBX soft phone app, right? So if you're using our soft phone application on your Mac or Windows PC, you can download this file and then upload it to your soft phone on your computer. And then you can see the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones on your soft phone itself, right? Under your contacts list, they'll show up. Green means they're available, red means they're on a call. Now, it only shows the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones, right? So you have people with multiple devices, you're not going to be able to tell the status of that other device, like their cell phone or even a Yealink phone, other VoIP phone. VirtualPBX Store, this opens up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, and where you can order things like a VoIP phone. And then the account realm, every account has its own account realm. It's used for a couple things. It's one of the three pieces of information you would need to program a third-party soft phone. So that, you just basically, it's one of the things you would paste into the programming of that soft phone app. The other thing it's used for is for sending out a fax. So once you have your fax box set up, you can send out fax out via email. In the email, you put in the two fields of the email, +, number 1, area code and phone number, little @ symbol, and then put your account realm. After that, you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file. The system doesn't look at the subject line. It doesn't look at the body of the email, right? So if you want to have like a fax cover sheet, you need to include that as part of your PDF attachment. And only one attachment per email. Up here at the top, towards the top here with the caller ID button, if I click on that, it expands out. This pull down lets you, will show you any of your main numbers that you have selected. My streaming software doesn't allow for that, unfortunately. But you select one of your numbers, one of your main numbers here. Right? That becomes your default number. Like for your VoIP phones, right? When they make an outbound call by default, any VoIP phone on this account is going to send this 512 number as its outbound caller ID. The company caller ID name, this is optional, but in the box here to the right, you can enter up to 15 characters. It counts spaces and special characters as part of that 15, so be aware of that. But then we associate that with your phone number. And then the company emergency information, or E911. The system wants a North American address. For our Canadian customers, put your postal code here in the zip code field. And in the state section here, put your province 2-character abbreviation. And then click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, if you've entered information here in the company caller ID name field, CNAME is what it's referred to as, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It can take them up to 3 business days to update on their side. And generally speaking, there's some caveats to deal with CNAME. All right, so we can control what we send out. Right, so when you make a call out from your VoIP phones, we send out this phone number and the name information that you've inputted. Now, when a call goes out, any call, right, it routes through several carriers before it reaches its destination. In our case, or in this example, right, so when you pick up your Yealing phone and make an outbound call, right, gets to that destination. Every carrier between us and your destination needs to support CNAME. If they don't, the CNAME information doesn't make it to the destination. Probably the most problematic part about that, though, is at the end, right? That last carrier, the receiving carrier, they have final say about the information that shows up on the phones on their network. So, for instance, they can just see our information and pass it through, right? Everybody's happy. Or they can just get the number. The most common is they get the number and they send that through. They don't send any name information whatsoever. And that's what the cell phone companies do by default, right? And they may then put in that spam risk or telemarketer information. And then the third option, which is annoying for everybody pretty much, right? They accept the phone number. They don't accept the name. They look up the phone number in their own database that we may or may not have access to. Look up that information and put that instead. All right. Now, we can't tell what other carriers to do something, right? That's their prerogative. We can double check a secondary database to update and see if that can force it through. But after that, there's not a lot more we can do. The hold music button here. So on Dash, you can upload your own media files. It will play back a .wav or .mp3 file up to 1 megabyte in size. So you would click this upload button here, find the file on your computer, click the up arrow icon, and then save changes. Now, hold music here, or music on hold, the system defines that as after a call has come into your system, right? And one of your staff members has picked up their VoIP phone. They've talked to the customer, and then they press hold. That's when this hold music file will play. Now, because it's a 1 megabyte file size limit, we recommend that you record in mono, not in stereo. That gives you a longer duration hold. file of like, say, a 1 megabyte MP3 is roughly 5 minutes. All right, hours is actually part of main number, so we'll get back to that in just a little bit. So let's go down here to users, little person sitting at a desk icon. So here you have my users page, right? Shows all my staff members on the account. The people with the little blue suit icon, these are my system admins, right? Dante here, who does not have a little blue suit, he's just a standard user. So he has very limited access. Up here at the top is where you would add a new user. Right? First name, last name, the system just wants some sort of text. The email address used for login, this needs to be unique for each user, right? So no repeating email addresses for multiple staff. This is how the system communicates with your staff. In terms of like voicemail notification, it goes to this email address. Password resets, go to this email address. Create a password for the user, and then enter an extension number that you want to use for this user. The system will make a suggestion for you, but again, you can change it and make it what you want it. I usually recommend making use of 4-digit extensions just to give you maximum versatility. And for, plan for growth, right? Here, the system automatically creates a voicemail box for this user, right? That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, create the user, you add a VoIP phone to them. They can pick up that VoIP phone, dial *98, and that will log them directly into that voicemail box we just created for them. The system will then prompt them to create a voicemail box PIN number, and then their voicemail box greeting. Right, so then they're basically set up. They can even set up like their name associated with the voicemail box, which is used in the dial by name directory. Speaking of, here's your option to include a user in that dial by name directory, the user directory. Put a check mark here or leave it blank. You can always change that later. This option here is send emails to an alternate address. So if you want those voicemail notifications or the password resets to go to an email address other than the one that you set up for login, then you would put a check mark here and then put that different email address here. Right. Not used that often, but you can always adjust this later as needed. And what I also recommended here is click on this box here, send credentials to the user. So once you click on create user, they get a welcome email, right, to the Dash account, gives them their login information, the link to log in. If you need to add multiple, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name, right? So you can adjust their name if necessary. Here is where you would change their credentials. Right, so you can change the email address and their password. You could also send them the password reset email here. So they could do the password, change the password on their own. Here, I can change the voicemail box PIN number for this specific voicemail box. Enter 4 digits, click on Save Changes. You see here, I have sent emails to an alternate address, so I'm sending it to this Gmail address. I can uncheck it and then just use my email address for login. And here you can see I'm in the user directory. Over here on the right, this pull down lets you change an admin to a user or a user into an admin, right? So when you add a new person, they start off just as a user. So you would probably, if you need to change them, you'll be changing them to an admin. Little clock icon here allows you to change the time zone for the user. So that way, like their voicemail timestamps are correct to their time zone. Little flag icon here. This pull down allows you to change the display language of these web pages, right? So English, French, German, or Russian. The rigging timeout, the default is 20 seconds. That is plenty of time to send calls to a VoIP phone or to a landline. If you have a user that's only answering calls on a cell phone, you'd want to increase this to 30 seconds, even up to 45 depending, but 30 usually is plenty. In terms of, it just takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to a landline, right? Call comes to a landline telecom, they know exactly where that phone is, they just pass the call through. Call comes to a cell phone telecom, they have to find the phone first, right? Ping the cell phone towers, then they send the call through. That delay is why on a PBX system, you would have to have a longer ring duration for calls going to a cell phone. And then any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. You just click on Add New Extension Number, add that secondary extension number, and then Save Changes. Users can have their own phone number. One thing to keep in mind, if you add a phone number to a user or to a group or a queue, basically anything that's not under main number or under auto attendance, they're not going to have hours of operation, right? So they're open, they're available 24/7. In terms of adding numbers, you have two choices here. Add from spare. This is making use of your spare numbers, right? So if you removed a number from somebody, then you could add it here, right? You would just click on Add from spare and select the number, right? Put a check mark, click Add Selected, and then you'd want to click on Save Changes, right? So now my user has two. Right, by numbers, this is how you add new numbers to the account. And in this case, I'm adding it directly to this user. You have your options of local and toll-free. Right, toll-free, you choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. And you'll be given, hopefully, a list of numbers here. There we go. You can scroll down to increase the list. Click by or add, next to any of these numbers. Now, I haven't reserved this number. Right, so if I walked away, right, so let's say my buddy came by, hey, let's go get lunch, right? So I go to lunch, we come back, and then I forgot to finish buying this number. If I click buy number, let's say an hour later, it may not work because someone may have taken the number while I was gone. So when you're done, you're like, okay, I've got the numbers I want. Then you want to click on buy numbers. Now you're actually adding it to the account, right? This isn't verifying no one else took it while I was talking. And then it adds it directly to the account. And again, I would want to click Save Changes. Local, similar, but you need to know the area code you want to work with, right? You just do a search, any area code, and that includes the toll-free prefixes. You can get this message saying that there's nothing currently available in that prefix. Go to your favorite search engine. And in this case, you would do a search for area code 310 overlay. And then you come back here to search. That would tell you that area code 424 is the overlay. Overlay overlay area codes, right? They're just two or more area codes that share the same geographic area, right? They have the same geographic boundaries. So literally people right next to each other could have a 310 and their neighbor could have 424. All right, but then you find a number you like, click add next to it, click on by numbers, and again, verify that the number is there. And in a case like 310 is in Los Angeles, right? There's a lot of area codes in that area. So I could even do near neighboring area codes if I do a search for it. You have this little gear icon here next to each of these numbers. The caller ID, you can set up the outbound CNAM and turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM information. And so your staff could see that information show up on their phones. E911, each phone number can have its own E911 address, right? And this then allows you to assign that phone number to specific VoIP phones for the purposes of 911 only, right? So if they pick up that VoIP phone, dial 911, the correct address is sent to emergency services, right? Like like my home address, if I work from home, I could have my home address set up here. So that way, if I dial 911, my home address is sent to emergency services versus my company headquarters address. Prepend. This allows you to put, this is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text to show up in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. So in this case, right, the word direct is showing up in front of the phone number. So when calls come in, say to me on my VoIP phone, I see the word direct and then their phone number on my VoIP device. So I know, oh, they called my number directly versus, coming in from a group or something else. All right, let's go down here to Dante. Next up, we have the devices box. Add from spare. This is how you would reuse a device. Right, new device, how you would add a new one to the account. We'll start here with the zip phone, right? This is that piece of hardware. So these manufacturers are the ones that support what's referred to as auto provisioning. Basically, it's designed to make adding a phone to the account easier. So you have these manufacturers to choose from, right? Some have a lot of models, right? Some have like a dozen. But okay, so you find the make and model of the phone you want to work with, give it a name, right? Like Bob's phone or warehouse phone, and then the MAC address. This should be a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, typically you can also find this under its status or sometimes basic settings. Enter the information here, click on create device, click on save changes. Then click on here again, click on the device box again for the user. It'll open up this box under advanced, select the miscellaneous, and where it says allow reprovision, click on the unlock box, and then save changes. So that tells the dashboard, hey, this phone is about to get provision, right? Allow that to happen. You then need to log into the phone's web user interface and give it a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go to this page to get your config file. For the specifics of that, go to our support pages and the link in the show notes. Do a search for auto provisioning. It's going to show you the screenshots and the specific syntax for the URL that you want the phone to go to. In some cases, there's a couple settings to check on. But then once you're done, right, so you would click, update and then auto provision now or some combination of that. The phone should reboot a couple times and then show up as a green device on the user so then they can make and receive calls. Right. Next up is cell phone, and this also applies to landline. Still need to give it a device name, right? And then in the number, the main thing to remember is it's +1 area code of phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. So if we go to this cell phone device here, you'll see that proper format here. And then if we go to advanced options, this is the default setup. So call comes into the system, reaches out to my cell phone. Right, my cell phone rings, I pick up the call. I'm going to hear a message saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. Once I press 1, I'm telling the system, yes, I'm there, and yes, I want to take the call. The call is then connected. That's great, right? If it's coming to my cell phone, I know I can then, that's a way for me to audibly know, oh, this is a work call. So I would want to answer it. Sorry, little coughing fit there. Now, let's say, for instance, you have contracted with an automated answering service, right? They're going to handle your calls after hours. They give you a phone number that said, hey, send calls to this phone number. Then they will handle all the calls, right? So you can add that phone number as the device on your account with us. However, if we're sending calls to an automated answering service, right, that automated answering service doesn't know to press 1, right? It's typically computer. It doesn't have fingers to press the 1. It doesn't know when to send that tone. So you want to come here under these advanced settings for that device that you added, cell phone or landline. And here where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, you want to put a check mark in front of it and then save changes. So what happens in this case? When we send a call to this phone number, we're no longer sending that message about this is a forwarded call and pressing 1. Instead, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right, so then your automated answer service handles the call from there. Everybody's happy. If you do this on your actual cell phone, what can happen is your cell phone voicemail can pick up, right? That's still a pickup tone. So that inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Maybe you want that, maybe you don't. That's up to you. Now, another option that can come up here is this one here, keep original caller ID. By default, this is checked. So what this means is customer Mary calls into the system, reaches my cell phone. On my cell phone, I see customer Mary's phone number. Right? I don't have any idea to know that's a customer. It's a work call. It's, could be just another telemarketer or robo-dialer I've been dealing with. Right? Right. Next year's the election year in the US, so who knows how many political calls I'm going to get, right? So you can uncheck this here. So now when a call comes in, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number on my cell phone, I'm going to see my main number. Let's go back to the dashboard real quick. Right, under caller ID, this phone number that I selected up here, that's the phone number I show that I'll see on my cell phone's display. So hopefully I recognize my main company number. You go, oh, this is a work call. That's worth me answering. It's not some rando calling me. Next up is soft phone. So whenever you add a soft phone or web phone to your account, you're going to get this warning message. It's about wireless VoIP technology and dialing 911, right? So let's say I have the soft phone app on my cell phone and I'm, out at a customer site, but some kind of emergency comes up, I have to dial 911. Well, if I dial it from my cell phone app, that's normally associated with, say, my home address, I'm sending the wrong address information to emergency services, right? And that's what this message is about. So in that case, I would want to just use my normal cell phone number to call. So make sure you read that at least once. Once you close, you get this big box. Now, this box here is adding a third-party soft phone to the account, which means you're adding someone else's soft phone application, say Xlite from Counterpath, for example. That's fine. We don't have a problem with you doing that. These 3 pieces of information that you see are what you would need. So you want to give it a name, right, on the account, so it's something you would recognize. SIP username, you want to copy and paste that into whatever soft phone application you're using. If you click on the SIP password box, that will show the SIP password. Please don't change this. Copy and paste it again into your application. And then here you have your account realm. Right, those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to make use of another soft phone application to work with us. Now, if you want to use our application, right, the VirtualPBX soft phone app, down here below the configuration guide, right now it says use third-party application. It's a toggle though, so you can click on it. So now I just clicked it, so it says use VirtualPBX application. So I need to give it a name. Then I click on create device. And then I click on save changes. Once I click on save changes, Dante here is going to get an email saying his VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. It's going to have the login information he needs for the soft phone, which is going to be different than his login information to Dash. Right? It's going to have download links. Right? So we can download the app to his appropriate device. All right, and then gonna skip down to web phone. Web phone, again, gives you that warning message. You just need to give it a name, click on create device and save changes, right? The web phone uses your Dash login information, right? So it needs to be associated with a user so it knows which login information to use. Otherwise, it won't work. All right, then we've got group features. All right, so first up, caller ID number. This is good for users that have their own phone numbers. This allows you to change the outbound caller ID of the user to their number on the user itself instead of the main number. So up here, you would click to enable. You select the number that's on the user, and then click on Save Changes. Once I do that, this 424 phone number that I have selected here, that becomes the outbound caller ID for this user, right? So whenever they pick up their VoIP phones, by default, this will now be their outbound caller ID, not the 512 number I have set up under the main number. Voicemail box, right? Every user has a voicemail box. This is the default settings. So like we attach messages to email. So what happens? Right, call comes in, they get the voicemail, I get an email. Then you have a new voicemail message. In the body of the email, I have the date, the time, phone numbers involved, the voicemail box number it went to, and then I have an MP3 attachment. So this is one way I can listen to my messages. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they're full and cannot accept any more. So I have two ways to then check voicemails to manage them. All right, so first way is to log in to my dashboard, and we'll go over here, go to my user portal. This starts me on my voicemail tab, so I can, play it back. I can download it, check mark here, and then I can change its status. All right. I can also call into my system, right? So for any number that goes to my virtual receptionist, when you hear that main greeting, you get *97 from any phone, right? Then the system will ask you for your voicemail box number and then the PIN number. Go back to this real quick. Now, if a voicemail box is particularly busy and you don't want it to ever get that full message, you have the option here to delete after notification. So what happens then is voicemail gets left, email gets sent with the attachment, the system removes the voicemail message from that voicemail box. So it never becomes full, but that means the only way you're checking voicemail is via email, right? So if you ever have a problem with your email, that could pose a problem. Follow me. This is best for users with multiple devices. As an admin, you have to come in here and enable it, and then you decide how their devices are going to ring, i.e. which phones are they going to make use of. Now, if I left this disabled, right, they have this user has 3 devices. So when a call comes to them by default, it rings all 3 for 20 seconds, right? And that whichever one they pick up on, they answer. Not a big deal. Right, this just allows you to have more control over how you want to do it. Over here under the do not ring column, they're defaulted to do not ring. So first you want to uncheck the devices you want to make use of. So let's say the VoIP phones. This little green bar, you can click and drag to give them ring time. You have timestamps going across the top here. It defaults to 2 minutes, which is kind of a long time for just ringing one person. So like you can change it down to 60. I can click distribute. Now it equalized out between my soft phone and my web phone. If for some reason I want my web phone to get the calls first, right? Or as an admin, I want this user to have their web phone take calls first. I have to click and drag and then click distribute. And obviously I can still adjust these so I can have it go for the full time if I want to. Like so. All right, fax box. Up here, you can click enable, and you can decide to have a user have their own fax box if you want to. You then have the option to use a spare number, buy a new number, or assign a new extension. I recommend using a phone number. This means that will allow the user to send and receive faxes. If you assign just an extension number, that user can never send a fax out because the system will use their personal fax box for the caller ID settings. When they try to send a fax out, i.e., they'll use the extension number, which will fail. Also, you potentially limit who can send them a fax. Now, I've used a couple different electronic fax services, and so far the ones I've encountered don't have an easy provision to send to an extension, right? They say, hey, put a number in, that's it. So something to be aware of. Conference bridge. This is where you would enable a user to be a conference moderator. So up here at the top, you click enable, and then you need to enter in a PIN number, and then save changes. When you see this enable video conferencing, that's for in-house, right? So your Dash users can all make use of video conferencing. Anyone outside will not. Call forwarding. You have 3 choices here: off, on, or failover mode. Your users can turn call forwarding off or on their own via the user portal. Now, if you've added a VoIP or a cell phone or as like one of their normal devices, you may not need to make use of call forwarding because it's already part of the device mix. So like this user, right? I left the follow me disabled. So that cell phone is part of his normal call mix. I don't need to enable call forwarding for him because he's already getting calls forwarded to his cell phone anyway. Now, for a user that only has a VoIP phone, whether that's soft phone app, web phone, Yailing phone, what have you, you also have this failover mode option. So this comes into play if that VoIP phone becomes unregistered, right? Dog ran by, yanked the cable out of the Yailing phone, right? Call comes in to that user at that time. With failover mode enabled, you can have that call go to the user's cell phone, right? You have that enabled. You choose mobile or desk phone. You put in the phone number. You click Save Changes. So whenever their Yailing phone is online, right? They probably take their calls on that phone. If it happens to come offline during work hours, the call can still get answered by them, right? Until they can get whatever issues happening with the VoIP phone rectified. And then on is just, hey, calls just go to this phone number. All right, customize call recording. This is to record your calls. When you first have it enabled, it looks like this, right? And that means you're not recording anything. You need to tell the system what kind of calls you want to record. Right, so inbound internal, that's a coworker call, right? So Dante called me. Do I want that on? Leave it off? Up to you. Right, inbound external, customer Mary called. Probably want that recorded. Right, outbound internal, I called coworker Dante. Right, outbound external, I called customer Mary. So often we see something like this. We have the 2 externals or all 4. Now, your account includes some level of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you just signed up with us, please check the pricing page. It should have that detailed there. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording every call, you probably want to look at AWS for your call storage. And then you would want to talk to our account services team about enabling AWS integration on your account. So then you can link your Dash account to AWS and to store your accounts there. Music on hold, you can choose to have users have their own hold music. You can upload a .mp3 or .wav file up to 1 megabyte. For instance, if you want your salespeople to have a set of hold music that differs from everyone else's, right? Because you want their holdings to talk about the current promotions you're running versus, calls to your marketing team. Actually, you might want that for your marketing team too, but maybe for like, say, your finance team, right? Your billing team, like, you probably don't need to talk about promotions. Maybe just say you can visit our website or just have hold music. All right, do not disturb. This is where you can turn the feature off or on directly on the user versus like if they're not there and they didn't do it themselves, right? You can go do it for them. Hot desking. This is a VoIP phone feature designed for like a shared office environment, hybrid scheduling. This essentially allows a user to log into a VoIP phone that they're sitting at and take calls there, right? So I come into the office on Tuesday, I sit down at desk number 2, I pick up the VoIP phone there, I hit *11. That turns on hot desking. It's going to ask me for my hot desk ID, which should be something I inputted, the system admin would have inputted here. One of the reasons I say use 4-digit extensions is you can then use that 4-digit number here for the hot desk ID. Right, then the system will tell me that calls will now be sent to this device. Right, so the rest of my workday, I'm sitting at desk number 2. Calls that are for me will ring at desk number 2. End of my workday, I pick up that VoIP phone again. I hit *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time I come into the office, someone's already sitting at desk number 2. I say good morning. I sit down at desk number 5. Same thing, right? Pick up the phone, *11, enter hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls at that phone. All right, next up is groups. Groups are hunt groups or ring groups, right? Departments, right? So collection of people who answer calls about a similar topic. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You need to give it a name and then an extension number. Click and drag your staff members who you want to be in the group, and you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. Yeah, you can always change the name. And then you also have group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer a call to the members of the group. You have little arrows here to the right where you can increase or decrease that as necessary. Here's your option to delete a group if you no longer need it. Otherwise, click on Save Changes. To the right of the group name, you have the members box. This shows the staff members that you have assigned to the group and how you're offering calls to them. So in this instance, this is referred to as blast ringing or ring all, right? I'm offering the call to all 3 of my staff members for the same amount of time at the same time, right? So basically, whoever picks up the call gets the call. Now, this setup can be a little confusing, right? Let's say Taylor and David pick up the call at the same time. The system has to choose which one gets the call. So, let's say David gets the call. So Taylor is sitting there going, hello, hello. There's no one there. So now he thinks it's possible he could think there's something wrong, right? Now, if in an office environment, he can hear David on the call, go, oh, okay, David got it, not a big deal. In a remote working situation, though, he may not know that unless he's an admin and can look at the call logs, or you're using Slack, you're just saying, hey, someone get this call, or did someone get this call, right? On the top here, you've got timestamps. The default for a new group is 120 seconds, 2 minutes. You can change that if you want. You also have the option here to distribute. So it equalizes out over time. One thing to keep in mind about groups is the system doesn't care if the person's on call. Right, so call came in, Taylor answered it. He's helping the customer. A second call comes in while he's still on that first call. System doesn't care. It still tries to offer the call to him. He may hear a call waiting beep. He may not. Right, that depends on what he set up on his phone. But after the 40 seconds, then the call would roll over to David. So now Taylor and David are both on calls. If a third call comes in, again, the system doesn't care. So that third caller has to wait 80 seconds before it gets offered to Dante. Now, as an admin, right, I could adjust the time so it's not actually equalized. It just gives them more time for, uh, or less time for that person to wait on hold. That's one of the advantages the call center has over groups is that the calls into the call center or call queue, it doesn't try to offer it to someone who's already on a call or marked away. It just goes to the next available person. Down here, I can add users, right? Just pick who's available. And then they get added here. And then I can click distribute, for example. And likewise, I could remove them if they no longer need to be in the group. I can change the order if I need to as well. Right, and then click Save Changes when done. Right, groups had to have that one extension number when we created, but you can add additional if you need to. Just like users, groups can have their own phone numbers. Any phone number you add to a group, and like a user, it's available 24/7, right? No hours of operation. Other than that, it's the same process, and you have the little gear icon here for E911, caller ID, etc. Group features, ringback. So call comes into a group, gets offered to the group members, their phones start to ring, right? That ringing sound is then piped back to the inbound caller. That's what ringback is. If you enable the ringback feature here, what you're allowing yourself to do is upload a media file to play instead of that ringing sound. Right, .wave.mp3 up to 1 megabyte. One thing to keep in mind is the duration of your ringback file, right, should match or exceed the total ring time of your group. The system does not loop it for you, right? So the default is 120 seconds, so make sure your media file is at least 2 minutes long. Next action, to me, this is the most important group feature. Up here is where you enable it. It's if no one answers a call, where do you want to send the call to? You have a pull down here. You can send it back to your main menu. You can send it back to a call queue if you have them, advanced call flows if you're making use of those, which we'll get to shortly. Right, a specific device, right, someone's phone. I can send it to a specific user, like the manager. I can send it to a different group, like an overflow group. But most common is sending it to a voicemail box, right? So that way the inbound caller can leave a message. And then click on Save Changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding. But again, if they have cell phone or landline, actually, if they have cell phone devices, you may not need to make use of this. Right? Because if they already have the cell phone as a device on their user and then they try to forward to the user or that cell phone again, right, they could get themselves in a loop and may not be able to answer the call. Caller ID prepend, this is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. You can use either text or numbers. I usually say choose one or the other. I personally prefer text just because that's how my brain works better, right? So you could put in the word support that shows up on your staff member's phone so they know, oh, this is the kind of call it's about, right? Useful for people who have multiple kinds of calls that they take. All right, so we've got users with devices, we have groups. So let's go to main number now. Up here at the top, we have main company numbers, right? You can always add numbers here, add from spare, buy new. You got the E911 prepend, etc. Right? You can unassign if you no longer want to use a number. Office hours strategy. When you just sign up with us, you start off at 24-hour open office, meaning, hey, you're ready for business, right? Ready to take calls. Otherwise, choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open. Put a check mark in front of the day, and then choose your open hours in 24-hour in military time. You also have the option to be closed for lunch if you want to be, right? So you'd be closed for lunch at the same time every day. Click on the little check mark here, and then put your lunch hours again in that 24-hour or military time. and then save changes. Office holidays. First, if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. Then if you are, over here to the right, you have the option to add holiday. You have single day, date range, and advanced. Each one, selecting any one of them creates a row, right? So single day, like I have here for Christmas Day, I gave it a name. I choose the month and the date, save changes. Date range, like I have here for holiday, right? Give it a name, start date to end date, save changes. Just as a precaution, we recommend not having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. It hasn't been a problem in quite a long time, but since there's no year indicator, it's just best practices not to do that. And then the advanced option here, like I have here for Memorial Day, I gave it a name. I choose the month. This second pull down, you have first through first through fifth, sorry, as well as last, and then you choose the day of the week, right? And then save changes. If you need to remove a holiday, click on the little trash icon and then save changes. Then we have incoming call handling. So for my main numbers, right? I have 3 of them right now because I removed one. How do I want my system to handle calls during my open hours, during my after hours, during my holidays? If I had selected to be closed for lunch, I'd have a lunch hours tab as well. Right, so this first option, call comes in, going to my auto attendant or virtual receptionist. I click on that virtual receptionist link, it opens up this big old box. On the left side is my main menu. This is what people press on their phones to navigate through my phone system. And down here, add route is how I create more options. You have 0 through 9, the start key, and the default action. The second pull down is things you've already added to your account, right? The directory, any user you've added, call queues, any groups, right? Any devices you have on the account or voicemail box. Right, so when they press 0, they go to my main voicemail box, whereas when they press 1, they're speaking to Taylor. Over here on the right is my greetings. First greeting option is text-to-speech. Right? Basically, I type in a greeting, the system reads it out. It's a computerized or robotic voice. You can enter up to 250 characters, not words. It does not count spaces as part of the character limit. Unfortunately, the system doesn't allow you to name the file, so it names it for you. So in this case, it's going to be main open hours menu TTS. So if you make use of text-to-speech, which is fine, it's a good thing to do when you're just getting started, right? You're not exactly sure how you want things to work. That's fine. When you create one, after you're done creating one, you want to go to the greetings tab, find that main open hours menu TTS file, change the name, make it something you'll recognize, because if you need to change it, then you'll have 2, right? If you don't do that, and then you make a change here, I'll have 2 files called main open hours menu TTS. Now I won't know which one is which. You can upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, up to 1 megabyte. Just click on choose file, find the file on your device, and then update, save, and save changes. Choose from an existing recording, right? This is a pull down. It will show all your media files. Main greetings, voicemail greetings, ringback files. You can record it over the phone. When the system says pick up a phone registered to the account, that means pick up a VoIP phone. If you want to use like your own cell phone, right, because you don't want to wait for a VoIP phone delivery, then down here where it says allow outside recording under settings, turn this on. Now you can call in from any phone number and potentially change your main greeting. Right, so you call in during your open hours. When you hear your greeting play, you would enter in this PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So it only works during my open hours. If I called in on Sunday, which is when normally I'm closed, this PIN number would not work. Now, if you have a greeting in place, right, and by default we create a text-to-speech greeting for you right off the bat, you're overwriting the existing file that's there. Right now, if you have hours of operation, right, your after hours, right, probably menu doesn't have a starting greeting to work with. So when you call in over the phone, it just creates the file name for you. It's like a alphanumeric string. But again, you can always rename the file. The main thing to keep in mind is though, when you do call in over the phone like this, right, you're overwriting the existing file. With the holiday season coming up, it's possible you could, overwrite your normal main greeting that you want for most of the year with the holiday greeting. So please be aware of that. Professional recording services, when you click on order, this opens up a new tab, takes you to Snap Recordings. It's a separate company. You can order professionally done greeting, right? They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They bill you directly. They send you the file via email. So then you can just come up here to upload your own file. All right, so settings. Next up, or first up here is number of retries on missed dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. Right, so they have one built-in opportunity, right? So when I say two number of redials, that means they have 3 total attempts. Typically, I don't see much more than 2 or 3 for most. Dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for an additional button press after the first one, right? i.e. someone's trying to enter an extension number. It gives them some time in between each button press before it decides that they're done. So in this case, it waits for 5 seconds after it hears a digit and then it waits. Oh, you're done. And then it looks up whatever was entered. Allow outside of recording, we already covered. Allow dialing extensions, by default, this is on. And this just means if a caller calls in, enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call to that extension. If I turn this off, that means the inbound caller can only press these menu options I have selected. Anything else comes up as invalid option. Here we have to suppress the playing of invalid entry. So, right, customer calls in and they keep pressing 7, which is not a valid menu option, right? And not a valid extension number. After that 3rd attempt, the system said we did not recognize your entry. If I have a default action, it will send the caller to this default action, right? So it said we did not recognize your entry, and then please wait while your call is transferred, and then it'll be sent to the directory. If I remove that, then they said, it'll still say we don't recognize your entry, but then it will say goodbye. And you can if you turn this on, that means you stop playing that message of we did not recognize your entry, and then either they transfer or they don't. Excuse me. So any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, make sure you click save here on the big box. When the box disappears, you're taken back to your incoming call handling. Click save changes here as well, right? You're clicking save twice. Okay, so for my after hours, I'm using the second option, which is the live operator answer option, right? This pull down lets you select items on your account, right? So like users, groups, queues, which are the primary ones, or devices, right? The idea here is you're giving somebody or several people a chance to answer the call first. So my support group, right? So those 3 people, they have a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to pick up, then the call goes to my after hours virtual receptionist, which again has menu options, has a greeting settings. Right, the 3rd option here I'm using for holidays. Now the first pull down, right, I can select users, groups, call queues, a device, a media file, what have you, right? I can offer the call to something first. But afterwards, then I choose whichever voicemail box I want it to end up at. In this case, the very end here is skip to voicemail, where I'm saying, hey, during my holidays, don't try to ring anything, don't play an extra message, just send them to a voicemail box. And then in this case, my main voicemail box, right? So we'll check it after the holidays. All right, main conference number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want to, right? We just add from spare or buy new. You also have the option here for a custom greeting, which is text to speech. You would click enable, then type in what you want the system to say. Even if you leave this disabled or don't enable it at all, right? When you call the conference room number, the system says welcome to the conference and then prompts you to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. The main fax box number, you can have one main fax box number, which is why you don't have the option to add from spare or buy new, but you do have the option to edit the fax box. Inbound notification email, ideally you put in an email address in here, and whenever you receive a fax, that email address gets an email saying you have a new fax, the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and a PDF attachment. Now, what can happen is someone can dial your fax box number, right? Hear fax tones, and most people hang up when they hear fax tones. That's still going to trigger an email to your inbound notification email address, but it's going to say there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, it's possible in the email that you get there, it'll give you like it'll say a wireless number as part of the caller ID. That tells you right off the bat, wrong number. Don't worry about it. Now, if it's a number you recognize and or are expecting a fax from, then you'd want to reach out to the other person saying, hey, it didn't come through. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, so available on some plans and not all. This allows you for a couple things. Extra auto attendance allows you to do sub-menuing, right? So 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. You would then create an English and Spanish auto attendance with greetings in the appropriate language and menu options going to the people who speak the appropriate language. Or, and one of the primary uses we've come across, customers with multiple accounts, right, or multiple businesses. So each business has its own phone numbers and own main greeting, but you can have the same staff people answer calls for them. Or you want them on the same account just so that way you don't have, 5 different bills coming from us at different times. So up here at the top, you click on Add Auto Attendant. You give it a name, you give it an extension number, you click on Create Attendant. The extension number is something your staff would use to maybe transfer calls. That's not something your customers would ever really know. Once an auto attendant is created, you can click on the name. By default, it starts off as unavailable in main menu. And that means it's a standalone attendant, meaning it's not designed to be part of be a menu option anywhere, right? Not a sub menu, not a next action option. So a separate business. Now, if I want it to be available in the menu, right, then I click on here. So now it's available in main menu. I would click on Save Changes. So now this attendant becomes available as a menu option. It also becomes a next action option. Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? Buy a new, add from spare. You got the little gear icon here if necessary. Extensions, you can add multiple extension numbers if you want to an auto attendant. And then you've got the little wrench icon here under settings. And you see I have open hours, after hours, and holidays. So my auto attendants have the same hours of operation that I set up under my main number, right? So if you have multiple businesses, but some of them are 24/7 and some are not, you want to talk to our account services team to see what your options are in terms of adding them on the same account, or if you need to have a different account. But beyond that, this is still just the virtual receptionist. So you add menu options, etc. And then save changes. All right, devices shows all your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered, so we can't send calls to it. Right, green means it's registered and we can, and black down here, right, that means I've turned it off under enable. You can add devices here directly, but they're not associated with a user because you can't assign them here. The main hiccup that people run into is trying to add a soft phone, because on this page, you can only add a third-party soft phone. You cannot add the VirtualPBX soft phone, right? Because it needs to be associated with the email on the user. You can click on the little wrench icon here under your VoIP phones. Or actually any device technically. For physical VoIP phones, under selected audio, you want either G711U and G711A. It's okay if there's nothing here initially, but if you run into any kind of audio related problems, click and drag these over here to the right. All right, and then click on Save Changes. The emergency caller ID, right? You select that, you select the phone number with an address, and that whenever this phone dials 911, this is the address that's sent to emergency services. You can also change the external caller ID so that way it's always this particular phone number when they make an outbound call instead of like on a user, etc. Greetings tab. This shows all your media files on the account. Right, main greetings, voicemail greetings, ringback files, etc. You can add new files up here, right? Give it a name, find the file, click create greeting. It will then add it to the system. Right, you've got the name, the source, right? TTS, text to speech. Upload means you uploaded it. Recording means you recorded it over the phone. This option here, you can click on the button to play the greeting back directly in your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, then you can click here to download the file and play it back on your media file. I would also recommend to do this for like your typical main greetings, so that way you have a backup copy of them. And then you have the little edit icon here, wrench, right? This allows you to change the name so it's something more recognizable, or delete it if you don't need it at all. Numbers, this takes you to your numbers in use, just shows you where your numbers are assigned. Got the little gear icon so you can update the E911, prepend, etc. Spare numbers shows your numbers that you're not using. Now, this is where you would also get rid of numbers, right? Once you've moved a number to spare, you can then delete it or remove it from the account. So you come to your spare numbers tab here, and you'll notice the change up here at the top, right? When I click on the little box in front of the numbers, now I have a new option there. And we'll get rid of those three. All right, I click on delete. It says, are you sure? I confirm the deletion. No problem. And now they're removed from my account. All right, by numbers here, that's local toll free. That's how you would add more spare numbers to your account. Port starts the porting process, right? Moving a phone number from one carrier to another. So in this case, from VirtualPBX, or from like AT&T to VirtualPBX, excuse me. Give it a name. All right, so, all right, choose local toll free, click next. Then the system wants you to upload a PDF of your bill from your current carrier. So from AT&T. There's a form to fill out where it wants like the name and the address, and that's what your current carrier has on file for you. It will ask you for the BTN, which is billing telephone number. If you're only porting one number, you can put that number that you're porting as the BTN. That's fine. There's a PIN number field. That's that's only necessary for a couple of kind of phone numbers, right? So if you're porting a cell phone number to us, your cell phone provider will require a PIN number in order to port. This is a security feature, because once you port that cell phone number to us, the cell phone device that it's actually associated with no longer works as a phone, right? Because now your cell phone's on your account with us, so when it rings to your Dash account. Right, that cell phone wouldn't work again until you get a new cell phone number from your carrier. Some VoIP providers also require PIN to port out. When it comes to porting, toll-free numbers take about 1 week. Right, it's like 3 to 5 business days officially, if everything's correct. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks. If we get a rejection, right, we double check to make sure there wasn't a typo anywhere, especially on our side, right, that we could control. Or in the case like if we get an address error, we double check to see if there's different addresses, right? Like, so if you have a billing address and a service address, right, and they're different, we'll try them both, right? But once we figure out there's nothing else that we can do to try to get it to go through, then we have to let you know, hey, we're getting a rejection for this reason on these phone numbers. At that point, you'd have to reach out to the current carrier to find out what the correct information is to port out. All right, voicemail boxes shows your voicemail boxes on the account. Anything that has an entry under the user column here is a voicemail box that was created with the user. But you can create your own voicemail boxes up here for like your groups, for instance. You give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Click on Create New Voicemail Box. Now, one thing to keep in mind, the voicemail box number is not the same as an extension number, right? So someone trying to get to this voicemail box directly and tries to press 3 from my virtual receptionist, not going to get here because it's not an extension number. It's not, and unless I make it menu option 3 to get to this voicemail, they're not getting here. Now, the voicemail box number and PIN number, that's how you would check the messages over the phone for this voicemail box. That's also how you would change its greeting and whatnot over the phone. If we go over to advanced greeting media, you can upload your media file or select one that's already on the system. The temporary field here is for the out of office or vacation message. So if you have something selected in temporary and in the media file, only the temporary file plays. The media file will not play again until you sent temporary back to none. And that's also something you can change over the phone as well. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes, right, have a built-in recipient, right, the email address used for login. But any voicemail box you create here, or actually any voicemail box, you can come to this page, add additional recipients, and then enter the email address, right? Keep clicking add until you're done adding people, right? And then click on Save Changes. And then under Advanced Options, so once you have a media file in place and recipients, you can click on the box in front of Already Set Up, so that way people can't fool around with it. It's done. All right, you'd want to double check to make sure that you are getting that attached to emails are there. And if it's a busy voicemail box, maybe delete after notification. And then Save Changes. Text forward. Again, this has to be enabled under the add-ons first, but you would click up here at the top, add number, choose a number on the account, and then choose to have it either be sent to an email address or a webhook. Right? A webhook, you'd have to have that enabled on the account. Most that we see are using email address. And basically, again, this is not for back and forth text communication. This is just so you're notified of when a text comes into a number. Call logs shows your call history on the account, right? So today I can see that these are the calls I've had. I can download these as a CSV. I can change it to this week or this month. Little green arrow to the right, that's a call coming into the system. I can click on it here to get some further details if there are any. Yellow arrow to the left is an outbound call. I can go to custom and I can go back further and then click filter. Let's scroll down here. Let's see. So here you see this call had several legs on the inbound side where, right, tried to reach this number. This is the one it actually connected to because it's got normal clearing, but it also tried these other ones. Right, this is more normal where, so here, this is a call coming into the system. This is a call going out from the system to the specific device of the user. Little fire hydrant icon here, or fire extinguisher, excuse me. This creates an email for you to report a call to us. All right, so it will already be pre-addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's going to have the technical details please type in what was actually going on, or why you're deciding to report this call. We're not always going to be able to tell just from the technical details why, especially if you have like an audio issue of some sort. The system lets you go back up to 12 months. After that, you have to reach out to our support team. Our engineers can go back up to 18 months. After that, we can't guarantee we can get the information. So if you need your call log information for any kind of compliance reasons, I recommend doing this, at least coming here and downloading every month. And that way you have a record of it. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phones. This is a page on our support pages, right? You can do a search for feature codes. You can also do a search for phone commands cheat sheet, which will have the little context help along with the feature code, right? I'll help bubble there. So your staff can make better use of these feature codes. Running a little late here. So next up, we have Blacklist. Blacklist is an included feature, allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching to your staff. So you click Edit Blacklist. You click Add to create a new one. I'm just going to use an existing one here. All right, you give it a name, and then you choose if you're blocking anonymous calls or not, off or on. Right, so off means anonymous calls get through. Right, if I turn it on, that means they're not. And that an anonymous call means we're not getting valid caller ID. Right, it doesn't give us a phone number, an actual phone number. Otherwise, down here where it says add number, right, click there. Add phone numbers that you want to block, right? +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking add until you're done. When you are done, right, click save here. Go click on back to settings. So you're back on this page. Make sure your list is on the right-hand side under selected. You may have to click and drag it over. And once it is there, or if it was already there, no matter what, click update down here at the bottom right. So now all the phone numbers on those lists are, when they get the system, they'll get to the system, right? It will show up in your call log, but they get busy tone, right? They're not gonna be able to reach through to a user to ring someone's device. Call recording. If you're using standard call recording, this will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It does have a login page, which just uses your Dash login information. So then you could view recordings there, listen to them, download them, etc. If you have AWS set up like this one, it'll take you to your AWS account. Of course, there's not much here because this is a test account. But if we go further back, you'll see the recordings here. Now, I can't delete any of these, so I'd have to log into my AWS account directly to delete the files. Monitor plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your other staff members. Doesn't matter what device they're using. In fact, you can sort by device specifically if you want to, right? Either who's available and who's busy. Over here, in active inbound calls, they would show up with their own little blue box and who they're speaking to. Part calls, they're basically their phone number of the person calling in and their parking spot number would show up here. Reports, this is a plan-specific feature. You'd want to look in the show notes for the advanced reporting demo. Basically allows you to create your own reports. If you do want this, you do need to talk to our account services team because they need to turn it on. After it's turned on, that's when data will start showing up. Anything before that point will not be in the reports. All right, voicemails. This is your voicemail box manager. So as an admin, you can get to any voicemail box on the account. And you can see the messages in that voicemail box. You have the date, the time, phone numbers involved. You can download them, play them back. You can move them or change their status. Integration AWS, this just shows you how to set up your AWS if you already have it set up. But basically this information here you have to get from AWS itself. Call center, plan-specific upgrade, actually, I believe. in the show notes the Advanced ACDQ's Pro demo. Uh, Again, their advanced version of groups. Managers can eavesdrop in, whisper, etc. Dynamic caller ID allows you to create rules to change. Oh, this is a plan-specific feature. Excuse me. Allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. So for instance, this one here, I gave it a name. I chose a 702 number on my account. And I basically said, hey, whenever my staff members dial a 702 number from their VoIP phone, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to the 702 number I selected. This one here, this is using a feature code. And I have to choose a number on the account. But basically what I'm saying is my staff members have to dial *951, then the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. And when they do that, whatever phone number I select, that becomes their outbound caller ID. All right, faxes, your fax manager. All right, so you can get to any fax box on the account. On the inbound fax page, right, you can see your inbound faxes, the date, the time. You can download the file, etc. Then we have the outbound fax tab. All right. If you see a failure here, that means we had a problem with the other phone number. Right, so we processed the request, we dialed out, ran into a problem. After you mouse over the failure here, you get this was a timeout waiting for initial communication. So what that tells me is that this was a valid phone number, except that we didn't get fax tones. Right, we weren't able to establish a fax communication. Email to fax logs. If you see a message here, that means we had a problem processing the request, right? So you can see the email addresses involved to make sure they're valid, proper format, but you click the little eyeball icon here, and you see here they didn't have a valid attachment. Likely means they forgot to include anything, but it could be they included something other than a PDF or a TIFF. Number manager, this just takes you back to your spare number page. Webhooks, plan-specific feature. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software. If you go into the show notes, you'll see a link there for the introduction to Zapier webinar. That's going to cover some of webhooks. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we've done to link Dash to other software. This is programming to some degree. Zapier makes it easier if you already have a Zapier account. At least in my experience, this would be more complicated for me in terms of non-Zapier usage. And you want to talk to our sales team, actually, if you're interested in webhooks. SMS registration. This is if you want to make use of texting. You need to register your account, start the registration process, and then you'll see your status here. And then finally, the user portal. Every user on your account has access to their own user portal. So voicemail tabs, they can see their own voicemails, right? They can listen to them. They can change the status. Call history, they can see their call history. They can go back further in time. Again, up to 1 year. And see their call history. Faxes only works for users that have their own fax box, but then they would see their fax history. Contact list shows your contact list on the account, right? So other users, the voicemail boxes, auto attending, etc. You can basically change the order, and that's about it. Your staff isn't going to be able to add to this on their own. Conference tab. Over here on the right is where your staff members update their conference room PIN numbers. You want to make sure they should have a different PIN number for moderators and for participants. Here's the option to enter deafened or muted. Play entry and exit tones. While in a conference, the little plus icon here, this allows you to invite other Dash users to your Dash account. Lock means you're locked to conference, so no one else can join. Mute everybody, unmute everybody, end the conference call. Also, while in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box, so you can mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person. The Settings and Devices tab right here is where your staff members enable call forwarding on their own. Little check mark, put the phone number, +1 area code and number, save changes, and that is everything. I'll go back here to the dashboard. I haven't seen any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I'll thank you for your time today, and we'll be back at next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Again, we do record these trainings, so you can come back and review the whole training if you need to. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.